Hey, it's Nikki. Before we start the podcast, I have something special for you as a listener. Around here in the month of February at Sales Maven, it is a special month for us because we love to celebrate the important clients in our life. So I thought it would be fun to do something and extend it to the listeners this year. That means I have put together a free training for you as a listener that you can go and take advantage of it. It's all about mastering the sales conversation. This is a quick training. It's there to enhance what you're already doing now and really amplify your success in closing more business. To go watch the training, you're going to want to go to yoursalesmaven.com/free training, and you can take advantage of it right now. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And when you're ready, start the podcast.
Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Rausch will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. Today's episode is part of the Mastering Excellence series. This concept comes from my background in neuro-linguistic programming, where we learn that there is a structure to excellence. And once you understand the structure of how somebody gets exceptional results at something in their life or business, you're able to then take that structure, apply it to your own life so that you can also receive similar results. And I'm super excited that today's guest is my friend and mentor, Elizabeth Hartke. Elizabeth, if you haven't met her before, is a business and leadership strategist and founder of the Luminary Leadership Company. She's the host of the Luminary Leadership podcast, an in-demand professional speaker, and has been featured in Forbes, Fast Company, and Entrepreneur. Elizabeth is passionate about raising up our current level of leadership to create generational change and wealth and leave behind a powerful legacy. Liz, welcome to the show, friend.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Nikki. You know you're my favorite. Don't tell anyone else. And I'm pumped about this concept of mastering excellence because I feel like this captures leadership, learning the actual process behind it. And I'm curious to see what I say.
I'm so excited that you said yes to having this conversation with me. I have been, we've had a friendship now for a few years. And just to give some background for the listeners, I got to go on Liz's podcast. This was your Scaling Up, right? Podcast.
Yeah. Back in the day.
Yeah. I feel like it's been at least 2 years, but maybe even 3 years ago. And I feel like we just hit it off. At the end of the podcast, you were like, hey, we should work together. And we started working together. I started doing some coaching for you. You were coaching me. And then you've brought me back many times to speak to your group, one of your mastermind groups. And I think our friendship has just continued to evolve. And then I joined your Luminary Leadership Academy. Is it a Luminary Leadership Academy? Mastermind? Incubator.
Mastermind.
Yeah, in the fall, which has been unbelievable. I mean, it's been unbelievable for me as a business owner. I am so thrilled to be there. And I will say you attract amazing people. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about everybody else in the group. Like the people that are in this group, it's unbelievable and so powerful. It's such a powerful group.
I'm having such a field day with this particular program because of exactly what you just said, the caliber of people, but not just caliber in the sense of, they're at the top of their business game, which you guys all are, but who you are as people, like your heartbeat and the just the love that everybody has brought into this group. It feels so connected and family-like, and I'm just super grateful. It was just such a divinely led thing, and I just kind of like, okay, I'll just do what I'm told and open the doors to this thing, and it's been pretty remarkable. But I mean, are you willing to admit yet, Nikki, that the whole group is obsessed with you? What is it going to take for you to see that just for the listeners, so I can sufficiently embarrass Nikki, because it's one of my greatest joys as she turns red on video.
I'm so red right now.
So red. I love it. But watching you come in and share your expertise, but then seeing how people have just had their eyes open to the possibility of how they can get their incredible missions and offerings into more hands because of how you've presented that path. And then just seeing them fall in love with you, not even just what you do and how you do it so well, but who you are and how you lead is just one of my favorite parts of the whole program.
Well, thank you. And I feel so honored that you asked me to speak at the retreat. We had a retreat a couple months ago, and Liz asked me to put together a training. We kind of worked through like what the training would be, because honestly, I went into this group, and I know you know this because I told you this before, like the first introduction to this group where everybody was kind of going around and talking about who their business, about their business and who they are as people. I will say I felt very intimidated, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I'm definitely like at the bottom of the totem pole here. These people are so far ahead of me in business. And I even reached out to Liz because I was joking with my coach at the time. And I was like, I feel kind of intimidated about being in this group. And he said, congratulations, you're the dumb, poor one in the group. Like, that's a really good place for you to be. And so I had reached out to you, and I was like, I'm the dumb, poor one in the group. I feel so intimidated by these people. They're so amazing. So,
which is proven to be false. I was saying, and this is just like a good thing to note for anybody listening. I mean, I assume most of your listeners are in that entrepreneurial space. Everybody comes into a new level opportunity or space fighting for the role of the dumb poor one, like assuming that they're at the bottom of the barrel. And the funny thing is that you said that to me, but the other 23 members had their own version of how they described feeling the same way. So it's our own self-perception sometimes that limits us, because we make that assumption that the grass is always greener, everybody's got it together. But what's cool is seeing how everyone's kind of stripped away that ego at this point in the program. And it's like, everybody's just there to serve and receive. It's okay to take, because that's what we're there for, but they're also showing up and giving, and all of that, like who's ahead, who's behind, who's made this much, kind of goes out the window when you just show up with that spirit of service and that heart of being coached.
There's this other piece, and I think this is going to lead into where we're going too, but I haven't actually had the chance to share this with you. But at your retreat, and especially after I spoke, I received a lot of really positive love poured back on me from the members, like to the point where I was starting to feel uncomfortable, because I love to get my message out there, and I love recognition unless I'm physically in the room getting it. And then I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so intimidated. And I feel really embarrassed by it. I get embarrassed easily about stuff like that. But the one thing that I started to wonder is I felt like this felt a little over the top, because people were so gracious and so kind to me. And I felt like, am I stealing Liz's thunder here? Because you had put on this amazing event. And the one thing I will say is you were so loving and gracious to me through that whole experience. And you continued to pour love on me throughout the whole weekend. And I just have to say that, to me, that really speaks to the kind of leader that you are, that I never felt in any way like any of my recognition that I was getting was in any way stealing any of your well-deserved recognition. And I'm just so I already was totally a huge fan, obviously, of yours, but I will say in that moment, it really elevated you to a very different level for me. And you just show up with so much grace, so much confidence, and you are always so willing to be loving to everybody around you. And I just am in such awe of that.
I'm blown away by that. I kind of speechless and appreciative. And the thought never even crossed my mind. It was, it's like watching anyone you love, a kid, a family member, achieve something great. Like, the thought never even comes into your mind of wishing you were in their shoes, or jealousy. You just want to see more of that happen because it's so fulfilling to watch it. That's how it feels, seeing you guys step into who you're called to be, and to be put in those situations where you are uncomfortable, because they're opportunities to really grow in your leadership. But thanks for saying that.
I'm just so impressed with you. So that's actually what we're going to talk about today, is luminary leadership and what that means and all of that. So I want to dig into some of these questions, but before we do that, tell us from your perspective, what does luminary leadership mean, or to be a luminary leader? What does that mean to you?
When it was placed on my heart a few years back to make a little bit of a pivot in business, where I've been doing business strategy for 10 years, and it's evolved a lot over the last decade, but I was really in the thick of it. And I kept hearing that leadership was going to be the bridge to help me serve my people at a deeper level. Because for a long time, I was helping people get high levels of business success, but sometimes they'd achieve whatever it is they were pushing for, and I could tell they weren't fulfilled, or they just wanted more. They'd move right on to the next thing, or they'd share, we'd develop a relationship and they'd share about what was happening behind the scenes at home, it kind of being at the expense of their marriage or their friendships or their children, or feeling connected to their family, or their health. I mean, I've walked through that where you experience actual burnout because you've done all the things business related and none of the things to take care of yourself. So I was seeing that and realizing that in all these years of being coached and coaching and all of that, leadership has been the number one tool that I've used to grow through to my next level in a way where I don't plateau and I don't burn myself out anymore or disconnect from my family. And when I start to, because I'm human and I make that mistake, I lean not into another strategy to get me over the hump. I lean into, who do I need to become? That, to me, that's leadership, right? It's not what do I need to do? It's who do I need to be in order to do those things? And is it in alignment with who I'm called to be? So when I was making a shift and we were going to open the doors to a new company of the Luminary Leadership Company a little while back, I knew it had to be leadership in the title, but I didn't want to define leadership the same way that everybody else defined it, because I found it really problematic. I feel like there's this kind of, toxicity in entrepreneurship that you see right now that leads to this constant hurry and saying that you're building this business for the sake of your family when it's really, hurting your family, or achieving things, but then not feeling fulfilled and not knowing why. It's just like this disconnect. And oftentimes people throw the word leader around when they're in a role of positional leadership. They run a company, they run a business, they have a team, whatever it might look like, or they're raising a family, like you're a leader in that role. But it didn't mean that you're embodying the values that I felt like were really indicative of a wholesome success of a leader. So to me, luminary was such a beautiful word to capture that, because luminary obviously can mean to illuminate or light, or, that's to me, like, as a leader, I picture the person holding up the light, making the path clear for the people that are following them. But a luminary is also someone that is just known kind of as a thought leader or prominent in their space. So I wanted those two worlds to be melded before leader, because to me, it's an embodiment of a series of values that we've identified as a company, that if you are achieving success in alignment with some of these core values and priorities in check, then you get to experience just the full glory and the fruitfulness of what leadership can be, of what entrepreneurship can be. Not just saying, I'm a leader, I run a team, I lead people, people follow me. Well, there's no guarantee that there's purpose and fulfillment and possibility in that. It just is more positional. So it's not this clean definition, but it's more of, are you embodying these values that make up what is really possible as a leader?
Well, I will say, this concept of luminary leadership was new to me, through you. And it has really stretched me in ways that I was unprepared for and super surprised by, and also have really enjoyed the challenge. Not only like you're saying, this whole piece of obviously with my team, I've learned a lot from you about leading my team in a whole different way. But also this idea of how am I just showing up, and who am I as a person and what does that mean? And who am I in my community and who am I in my marriage, and just all of it. It's really, it's been phenomenal. So, okay. So I'm going to get into some of the nitty gritty questions here. So the idea is, what is it like from your perspective? So if I were going to stand in for you for a day, like I get to like wear your shoes and be you, what would I have to do? What would I have to think, or how would I have to behave in order to really embrace that luminary leader in me?
That's deep, Nikki.
I know.
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind, which I think is the point of this process, right, is like really figuring out what the answer is it's a little bit of fighting nature, at least for me. So I think we're kind of programmed as human beings, one, just as human beings, but then two, just by our environment or our upbringing or whatever, we're kind of programmed, right? We have the ways we learn to do things, or our habits, or what is just us, take it or leave it kind of attitude. And in order to really embody luminary leadership, it almost feels like a little bit every day I'm going into battle. I'm prepping myself to go into a battle to fight against that nature. Not that I don't want to be me, but the elements of me that slow me down or hold me back, or the bad habits I have, or the negative ways of thinking, they become my ceiling to what's really possible. And they tend to outshine the great parts about me that I've developed and worked hard at, or like learned from my upbringing, or the good things. But for some reason, the negative tends to outshine. It's like you're driving on the highway and you pass 1,000 cars over, your 2-hour drive, and 1,999 of them drove past you perfectly fine and you hardly noticed them. And one of them cut you off, and now everyone's an a-hole and you hate everybody and the day is ruined. Yes. You notice that one thing that's like really cutting you off. So to me, it's a little bit of fighting nature. And I don't know if it's like that for everybody. All I know is what I know, right? But I do things now to really prepare myself for that. I don't go into it getting blindsided by the fact that I'm like, okay, I'm naturally really impatient and hot-headed. So when someone brings me something, I need to elevate above that if I want to be a luminary leader and not just give in to the way that I've always been or how I was taught. I'm going to prepare myself. So I really dedicate time in my day to get my head right, to get my body right, to make sure that I'm very conscious of the energy that I'm bringing into every space, whether it's a virtual space on a Zoom with my team, or it's coming into my kitchen to homeschool with my kids, or coming to have lunch with, my husband, Michael. I'm fully responsible for that energy I'm bringing in. And I have to be aware that when nature starts to creep in, what tools do I have in my belt to really embody those values that I want to live by? One of the things is just having reminders around of what those values are, whether it be, my family really understanding what values that we choose to live by and who we want to show up as leaders. We use the phrase luminary leadership with our kids. Our kids are young, but they understand what we mean by it. And right there on our wall is our set of core values that help us embody those things. So that would be the first thought, is preparing myself to kind of go to battle with myself every day and choosing leadership, even when, it's not necessarily an easy choice for me.
I love that. The idea that you're being conscious of your energy and that you're taking responsibility for your energy. So that, I think, is a really good nugget right there for all of us to take away, is to think about, am I being responsible for my energy right now? Or am I letting other things dictate how I'm going to show up? So I love that. That's phenomenal. Okay. So I think that's a really awesome nugget that she just gave right off the bat here for us. So here's my next question is, what specifically would I have to do to behave like you?
So there's, I have a lot of day-to-day interactions throughout the course of the day. And I think of things in terms of I feel like we're so relational, that your question is leading me to picture the moments where I'm connected to other people, not when I'm, a hermit alone, not connecting. So I'm thinking of it through that lens. But the behaving like me element is, poise is not the right word, but it's almost like you show up to every interaction and challenge and choose to envision how you want to be on the other side of it. So I'm actually answering this question in real time as I'm thinking about how I ask myself that same question going into specific situations. Okay, like how do you want to behave? Right? Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example. My kids are 6, 4, and as of yesterday, 3. My daughter just turned 3.
Oh.
So it's a circus in our house. The energy levels are high, and all 3 of my kids are 100% alphas. Like they in charge, independent, opinionated. It's going to serve them immensely someday in life, but I probably will be dead because I'll be they're beating my husband and I down. It's exhausting raising 3 alpha kids. But I have to go into those certain situations saying, this is how they're behaving, but how do I want to behave in this situation? I want to be patient. I want to be kind. I want to lead with love. And it's the same within, running a team or interacting with your followers or clients or whatever, is asking that question that you just asked, how do I want to behave? The number one thing that sticks out to me is lead with love. That was how I was raised and taught. If you lead with love, even if you're going into a really difficult conversation, even if you are going into a really challenging moment in your life, or you're facing hardship, or you made an epic mistake and failure that you just have to show up and own, if you choose to lead with love, you're going to come out the other side better for it. You might have to walk through the pain of it. So to behave like me, I suppose it would be how do you process what leading with love looks like? And it's not leading with anger. First of all, it's leading, right? It's not managing the situation. It's not avoiding. It's not passing it off to someone else. So all the things that embody leading, which is taking ownership and responsibility and wanting the best for others and being selfless. Leadership is everyone wants to be a leader until they become a leader. And they're like, this is the most tiresome burden I've ever had on my back. Leadership is not glamorous at all. So first is leading, but then what does love look like? And to me, I think of it in terms of biblically, it's patience and kindness, and that compassion, and the things that really putting yourself in the other person's shoes before you speak, and listening, even if it means, we've gone through phases where we've had to let people go from our company, for example. Mm-hmm. And I go into that situation and choosing to behave from that angle of leading with love.
Yeah. Thank you. I think there was a lot of gold in there too. This idea of just even leading with love, like that alone kind of, and whatever that means to the person listening, and, what does love mean? And like you said, making that distinction between actually leading, and then this idea of what does love mean to you too. So that was super helpful. Thank you. So what are your goals as a luminary leader?
So I am so excited for these next few years. I do everything by, this about me by now, Nikki, but I try not to do things just by the year. I want to look, 3 to 5 years out at least, so that it ensures that the year that I'm in is going to be supportive of the longer term vision that I have, that we have as a family, and that our company has. So I'm really just kind of giddy about what's upcoming within that time span of both business related things and family related things. But as a luminary leader, my goals are to really, primarily, most important thing for me is to sit in stillness and be able to hear what I'm being called to, how I'm being guided. Because it's really easy I'm an idea person, and I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. I could come up with 100 new ideas a day. Doesn't mean they're good, but I can come up with them. But I want to make sure that things that I'm pursuing in all categories of my life, and the goals that I'm setting, are really in alignment with who I'm called to be. Because I've had plenty of times over the last 10 plus years where I have a great idea. Like, it really is. We market test it. Other people agree. They're willing to buy it or get on board with it or whatever. but it sucks the joy out of me, or it leads me away from what I've said are my priorities, like my family or my health or my faith or whatever it might be. So the primary thing for me, the number one goal that I kind of juxtapose every other actual physical goal against is this honoring that purpose? Is this honoring who I actually want to show up as every day? Not just as a woman wearing multiple hats, business owner, mom, wife. It's me. That's it. I'm one person. I happen to love a lot of different things and show up for different things, but I'm not compartmentalizing myself. So is the person I'm choosing to be every day in all of those worlds, setting the goals that are in alignment with who that is. So that helps me actually figure out what the goals should be from a standpoint of business goals, family goals, life goals. Do you want me to get into the weeds of what the actual goals are?
That's up to you on how deep you want to go. I'm so interested. Of course, I love this conversation. And I will say, because I am a part of your, this incubator where we have a group Voxer, where there's a lot of questions asked and there's a lot of expertise and resources suggested. And when you show up in those, like what you're saying to me right now, you really do walk your talk, because I hear you challenge all of us a lot of like, is this in alignment? Like, yes, that can make you money. And is that in alignment with who you want to be? And is that going to bring you joy? And like the things that you just said, I feel like you have a way of constantly bringing that back into the forefront of all of the decisions that all of us are on this, like, well, I could go this way or I could go that way. But that's kind of, I feel like you kind of all bring that back, like bring us all back to, like, to me, it's like home base of like asking that.
Yeah. And we call it in our family, our true north. It's kind of our guiding star of it actually makes those decisions so much easier. So whether it be a great opportunity that comes into your world in business and you want to set a goal around that, or a goal that you're setting within your business of, I want to hit this number financially in this timeline, or I want to land these stages, or I want to do whatever, or something personally or in your family. When you have a true north, which to us, we actually developed into a physical workbook because my husband and I were struggling with this. We kept having shiny object syndrome, where we were saying yes to too many things and we were taking on too many things, and we just felt hurried and rushed and stressed. And it was like, oh, we're filling our calendar with all this awesome stuff, but it's not really moving us towards what we really want most. It's in fact, it's kind of moving us away from it. So we started to create our own process as a family of, what does it look like to just know what's right for you and what's not, to know with certainty in this season what my priorities are, to know what my values are, and to really define them. I mean, I think it's like a lot of people just will spout out their values. They'll be like, yes, integrity and generosity and kindness. It's like, what does that mean? How does that show up in your daily life? Or how are you living out of alignment with it? If you're out of integrity, what would that look like? Really defining it. So we developed this true north that we use for exactly what you're talking about. The reason that it's easy for me to quickly determine who I do business with or who I don't, or what I take on and what I don't, or what I allow my kids to take on and what we don't, is because I have the playbook. Like, I have my set of standards that we have chosen to live by. And I just say, hey, does this line up or does it not? And I think the reason it's so hard for people to set goals or to cast a vision is because they don't have their core. They don't know what their central, navigation system is telling them. So they're just making decisions on what feels good in the moment, and feelings change by the millisecond. If you're a woman, probably even faster. So it's like, you need to have your North Star, your true north that's guiding you. And then that lack of clarity, that frustration, that feeling like, I thought this was the right thing, but why is it not? Or I thought this was the right goal and I achieved it and I don't feel any better. It starts to fade away. And you have this clarity and vision that allows you to just kind of move forward full steam ahead and not waste your time on the things that might look good, but ultimately slow you down in pursuit of it.
I think that was fantastic too. This idea of like, what, obviously, what true north means for you, but the fact that you've done the work, that you have the playbook, So I think that's a good reminder for all of us when you're thinking about stepping in and being a luminary leader is like, have you done the work and do you have your own playbook? Because if you don't have your own playbook, it probably is easy to go shiny object syndrome or make this decision and that decision and then feel some regrets around it. So I love that you're so clear on that. Okay, so the follow-up question is then how do you know that you've achieved your goal of, staying in that true north? Like what's your evidence of that?
It's taken a while, but I've really learned to listen to my intuition more. And that would be one of the key things. I think so. Deciphering between intuition and ego to me is a really premier leadership skill. Not everybody has learned to do it. And as a result, they struggle with this more. And there's no framework to figure out how to do this. But to me, the easiest way is to define the difference between the two because they sound very similar, right? Your ego can kind of be a wolf in sheep's clothing and deceive you into thinking it's your intuition. When you go into a situation and there's this, in the first split second, you have a thought around what you should do, but then you make a different choice after it because other thoughts come in and kind of almost hip check that original thought out so fast that you almost didn't notice it. Like you go to a restaurant and you know what you want, like you kind of get that thought of what you should eat. And then you somehow end up ordering the thing that makes you feel sick every single time, but it tastes delicious. So that initial split second, we miss it because it is so fast and so fleeting. And the sound of our ego shows up so loud and so aggressively and for so much longer that we end up being like, oh, well, I guess my gut's guiding me here. So it's learning to not ignore that initial thought or feeling that you have in certain situations, because that's likely your ego trying to give you some guidance and allow you to make the right choice. The other thing too, and the difference is sometimes I'll sit and like I said, I'm an idea person. So I can sit in thought. I actually block time out of my calendar. I did it this morning where I have 2 hours, nothing in front of me, no computer, no phone, just a whiteboard. So it really allows my mind to wander. And the difference between what are just my thoughts coming to me that are my own and kind of the ego can be a good thing. It can support your ideas and help you come up with stuff. And what is really just coming from within is as I'm writing, it's almost like the ego thoughts come to me sentence by sentence, like first this and oh yeah. And then I build on that and it kind of flows. But the intuition thoughts come to me almost like a direct, like a copy and paste right into my brain. It's like the whole thing is just gifted to me. It wasn't my own. And that's the direction I'm supposed to go. So I don't know if that fully answers the question, but it's deciphering between those two things to me is kind of that first step in the process.
Well, I think there's some real clarity there. At least for me, I'm going to take this away because there are these times where I will sit in silence and look for the answer. And you're right, just this distinction of, are you writing it out word for word, you've got a full sentence, or what's that copy and paste, boom, here's that idea, and really leaning in and trusting that those copy and paste moments, those boom, here's this idea, maybe. And I think the way, I don't know, you tell me, but I think the way that I learned to trust my intuition is it's proven over and over again to be true because I'm willing to test it and go, is this true? I'm going to lead with this, this copy and paste, this and I can think of many moments. I actually get for me personally, I get these a lot of times around people. I'll have these crazy, out of nowhere, this boom thought that's this copy and paste. And there won't be any evidence as to why that thought is there. But I know now to really trust those and lean into them because over and over again, they have been proven to be true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. And to build on that too, how you know whether you're on track to that true north, it's a couple different things. Sometimes it's a little trial and error, right? Where I think it's the right thing, but the feeling that I have around it quickly alerts me that it's not. Have you ever had that experience where you're like, oh yeah, I'm really excited to sign this client. I think it's going to be great. And then you start working with them and you're like, this is terrible. Okay. My gut, I wasn't listening to my gut. I didn't do something in alignment with my values. I will learn from it and do it better next time. It's not to say that I always get it right because I have this, this playbook now. It's that I still get it wrong, but now I know what to come back to. And the other thing is, and it's why we have the incubator. It's why, we should be in community in a world that has us so divided right now, is accountability and other people who know those values and know that potential in you and know that purpose, so that when you are out of whack with it, they can call you out on it. They can be like, hey, Nikki, that's actually not in integrity with what you said you wanted. So let's talk about it. Did something change? Do you need someone to hold up a mirror? What's going on? So there are ways that you can lead with love and gently call other people out on that. And it's got to be in relationships where you've both given each other permission to do it, and that they really know you and they have that vision for your life and that purpose and that potential, in their hands too. They know what's possible for you and what you're called to, not just saying anyone's opinion should be hold a ton of weight. But I think it's really critical to have those people in your world that are going to kind of operate as bumper lanes in pursuit of your mission. And a lot of the decisions I make in my life too, kind of something that brings me back to intuition when I can't tell what's ego and what's intuition. And I'm like, man, I don't know. Is this the right thing? Sometimes it's just like, when this plays out, which path, like what would I regret more? Would I regret doing this more? Sometimes it's not a perfect answer, and we're presented with really hard things. It's not always deciding between two awesome speaking opportunities that fall on the same date, which one's better. Sometimes it's really horribly difficult life decisions where you have to choose a path and they both kind of suck, but which one would be more representative of the person you're becoming? Like, which one would honor that version of you, and which one would you regret? If you didn't do it, what would you regret more? So sometimes you just have to come down to baseline and be like, I don't freaking know, but I'll use this as a little bit of a barometer to help get me through this tough question or this tough decision.
I think that what you just shared right there, of being able to ask yourself that question, what would I regret more? And the fact that you put it in this terms of sometimes the decision or the options in front of you are not fun options to pick from. I know I've shared, I know that this last year has been really difficult, and you and I had a pretty personal conversation about it. And I feel like you even said that to me there. And the one thing, and it did come down to some really, really difficult choices. And there was no winner. Either one was going to be really painful and has been, but to really be able to stand in my own place of saying, what would I regret more? For me, it came down to who is the person I want to show up and be. And when I look back on my life and I tell this story, what story do I want to tell? And for me, it was one of forgiveness. And that meant I had to make a really difficult choice. So I love that you shared it that way, because not all decisions are fun. Not all choices in front of us are going to be easy. And sometimes I think you will kind of second guess, but I love that you had talked about having some people in your life that can help hold you accountable and check in and understand your mission and understand where you are going and can check you on it. Because I hear this in our group too, that there are times where in a very kind and loving way, you do challenge us around this, some of the decisions that we're making, is this really in alignment? And, is this going to get you closer to who you've said you want to be and what you want for your life? Or is this just a fast, oh yeah, it can bring some dollars in the door, which sometimes needs to happen. I get that too, but yeah, so I love that. So you may have answered this question, but I want to pose it to you just in case, is because you've talked about, okay, so you get this copy and paste, this boom moment, this intuition moment. What do you then do to actually reach like the goal of accomplishing what that was, that download, that like intuition.
Yeah.
What do you actually do?
For me, I think we have the habit of asking, what do I do? And I've learned to first ask, who do I need to be? So, and that's kind of the crux of leadership for me. So let's say I get this download I did with this company, creating the Luminary Leadership Company. It was when we were in the height of our podcast downloads for our previous podcast. We had a wait list for all of our programs. We were incredibly profitable. We were starting to get more features and publications, but I kept getting this direct download of like, nope, doesn't matter. You're opening the doors to something new. And it made no tactical sense. But it was strong enough that finally I had to listen to it. I tried to ignore it for about 2 years. I didn't want to change paths because things were good, but I've always been a proponent of good for great. So that often comes with sacrifice and growth. And it was really easy because I'm a business strategist to put on my giant whiteboard, Luminary Leadership Company, like when do we launch and how are we launching it? And what's the marketing strategy? And are we building funnels? And what's the podcast plan and all of that? What do I need to do? And that has to happen in order for something to come to life. But the mistake I've made before for myself and for previous clients years ago was that I would strictly step into that and then I would go do the thing and I would not be the version of myself that was ready to receive that next level. So it would crumble or it would feel crappy or it would stress me out, or I'd have to be so rushed and hurried and stressed in order to keep it going that it was like, this is not even worth it, because I hadn't yet developed myself into the person that was ready to receive it or achieve it, then receive it, then even sustain it. You see that a lot. Like when someone wins the lottery, almost all of them lose the $400 million they got. It's like, how do you lose? But they got picked up over here as this person who probably wasn't very good with money and plopped into a ton of money with the same habits and the same thought patterns and the same self-worth and the same, way that they showed up, and boom, it was gone. It was because they did, what do I need to do? They didn't say, who do I need to be able to hold on to this level of wealth? So it's the same thing. So I go into, who do I need to be? And you can break that down tactically. It's like, okay, what habits do I have today that are not going to serve me in opening the doors to a new company? What thought patterns do I have around myself or limiting beliefs do I have that are going to limit my possibility in running a leadership company? I was opening the doors to a leadership company where I was going to start serving my peers, people at, the same level or even some higher in, 8-figure entrepreneurs have come through our doors. And that was a mind F for me. I was like, whoa, I'm not ready for this. Who am I to do this? I'm like, but man, I'm running a leadership company. I better figure this piece out. I got to break through this stuff. So it was more of the, who do I need to be? And then once I was nurturing that and becoming her and honoring that and being self-aware of the moments where I wasn't honoring that, I could start to say, okay, what do I need to do? What's the project plan for this? How am I going to actually breathe life into this so that it's not just this idea in my head and I'm over here just doing personal development for the next 3 years and not doing anything? They have to kind of happen in tandem. But really, our tendency is map out the to-do list or have our strategy in place. And people wonder why there's such a high failure rate of companies, or there's such a high divorce rate among entrepreneurs, or all these health issues. It's not coincidence. It's by how we've designed the process, and we're not ready for it. A baby needs about 9 months to gestate in order to be prepared to survive outside the womb, right? So we want to be picked up and plopped into this dream or this vision or this opportunity or this goal or whatever with no gestation period. When a baby's born too prematurely, they've got problems, or God forbid, they can't even survive. It's like same thing for us. We need time to gestate. We want to come out. We want to be out in the world and make the thing happen. And there's a lot of do behind that. Unfortunately, I've had 3 kids, and you don't get to just wish the baby out. You have to do some things to get the baby out, and it's not fun and it's painful, but it's worth it. But you need that time period to grow and develop. And so that's that's the key for me is anytime I'm coming into those new opportunities, it's like, all right, who do I need to be to master this? Like, who do I need to be to knock this out of the park? Am I her yet? Or where are my deficits? What tools do I need to get there? And I'm kind of in a stage of that now too. Every time I'm stepping into some kind of new level or possibility, I am usually changing or improving my habits or my thoughts or the tools and resources that I'm leveraging during that time.
Well, I feel like you just gave us a masterclass with that answer. That was so amazing. This idea of really challenging yourself instead of trying to do all the like, okay, here's my to-do list, of taking a really big step back and going, who do I need to be? Answering that question and then figuring out where your deficits are and then investing your time and your energy to, fix those deficits or get that training or understand that or let go of that, limiting belief or whatever that is. And this idea of a gestation period, that it isn't an overnight thing. You don't just get to decide, this is going to happen and then feel really disappointed when, tomorrow, not everybody is rushing to sign up for some new program you launched. Because like, who do I need to be in order to have a successful program launch like this? Or
right.
Who do I need to be in order to really stand in a place of luminary leadership? Like, where are my deficits? I think that was a masterclass. That was phenomenal. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that was so good. All right. So the next question is, how do you know that it's time to really pay attention to this idea of what you just gave us? Like, how do you know it's time to pay attention to who do I need to be? And then those deficits.
There are symptoms. There are symptoms to lacking in leadership that end up leading you down the wrong path. And so when you know the symptoms, then okay, it's time that I start doing this. They're real easy. And I guarantee most of the people tuning in, if not all of them, have felt them. Burnout, stress, hitting a goal, but not feeling fulfilled when you hit it. Guilt, this is a big one for the parents out there that feel split in two. You're called to business and called to raise a family, but you feel guilty when you're in the business that you should be with the kids. You feel like guilty or off or stressed when you're with the kids because you should be pouring into the business. Let's see what else. I think imposter syndrome is a big one. Who am I to do this? Am I really capable of this? That kind of new level, new devil idea. Or feeling like you have something to prove in everything you do. So every post you put out, everything you launch, it's like, I have to give the illusion or this facade that I'm something because I have to prove that I can do this, or I have to prove that I'm worth this level of pay, or I have to prove that I can break into this new industry or serve my peers or whatever it might be. So when you're operating from that ego, that's a big symptom of like, okay, there's huge opportunity for me to really tap into leadership development, tap into my own growth and let go. When you're constantly comparing, when you don't have your blinders on and just know where you're called, that's a big one. Lack of clarity. That's probably one of the biggest ones I hear from people when it's like, okay, this is not a strategy problem. This is a leadership deficit. Let's work on it. They're like, I just don't really know what I should be doing next, or what offer I should be creating, or where I should be putting my time, or what goals I should set, or what that should look like. That's a big one. Or the attitude of, well, like people, you just don't understand. Like for me, it's different. Thinking that you magically have some problems that other people in the world don't face.
You're the special snowflake.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, you just haven't figured out how to rise up and face those challenges. Plenty of other people are facing them and pushing through them too. So those are kind of, I do it more symptom based. It's like, take a pulse. Which of these things, if you're saying yes to like one or more, which is common, you have an opportunity there. It's not even like, oh, I got to beat myself up. I'm not a leader. No, you might be a great leader. I constantly have some of those symptoms start to show up and I'm like, okay, this is not a day where I'm diving into the to-do list and trying to grind through this thing. And if I just could get through this launch, or if I just made this much money, or when I finally get through this season, it'll be different. Nope. I need to fill my leadership cup so that I am serving from a place of overflow. So I went through years of serving from this empty place of like, I have to serve, I have to show up for my kids, I have to show up in my business, but the tank was empty. So anything I got up here in knowledge bank, right? I read something amazing, I'd like, boom, give it to my clients or like try and do it with my kids, but I wasn't absorbing it and becoming it. But overflow leadership is your cup, you're pouring. And I think that we're in this culture too right now of a lot of self-love stuff, self-care, which is fine, but it's misinterpreted and misguided. It's like, that's okay. Like the kids can wait, go take that bath, mama. And we're like, you do you and you first. And I hate that stuff. I think it's selfish and backwards. However, I do think it's necessary to nurture the pieces of yourself that are most critical for you to serve at the levels you want to serve. That doesn't mean, a vacation is a break from reality. It's not fixing anything. It's not filling your cup fully. It's temporarily making you feel better. But what is missing inside? Like, what do you have to break through? What do you have to learn? What do you have to develop so that you're overflowing into the people that you're around? And it's so natural and it's so happy and it's so fulfilling instead of feeling like, okay, I made it through that call. I got my clients what they needed. They're happy. I just got to get through this next one. So it's keeping a finger on the pulse and then not just slapping a Band-Aid on the symptoms like we're trained to do, but instead figuring out how to get to that root cause and nip them in the bud once and for all.
Yeah, that was fantastic too. And what a great list of symptoms that you gave us. So if you've identified, so let's say you personally have identified that you are struggling with, 2 or more of these symptoms, then what do you do next?
It probably depends on the symptom, but yeah, I'll tell you what you shouldn't do, which is what I used to do. Most of these symptoms are from too much on your plate, spread too thin. And the idea is, I'll work on Saturday. I'll just I'll just add Saturday into my repertoire. And then I can finally get through that to-do list. It's like, no, that is perpetuating the same problem. You don't need more hours. Everybody has the same amount of hours. You need to figure out why you're in such a state of hurry, why you're so stressed, why you are taking on so much. What do you really need? What's going on? What's really going on here? So taking kind of a diagnostic of the situation. But what you can do is lean on the people that are around you, whether it be literally like, how can they support you in the things you're doing or your team or whomever, but also I'd like to talk through it because someone else you can't see the label from inside the bottle. So when you have these symptoms, the sky actually is falling to you. Like you feel like you're falling apart. And sometimes you just need someone to be like, no, you're just in this really tough spot. This is what I see that you can't see. And here's how I feel like you could work through that. I can't tell you how many times talking to my mom, who is, a businesswoman that I admire, plus my mother. So she always has that perspective, or certain mentors in my life. Just one conversation can take me from a level 10, like steam coming out of my ears, head spinning, to like totally calm and clear, and the fog clears and I can see the path forward. So trying to navigate it alone is, I just think, going to send you deeper into a spiral, and you really can't see what other people can see from the outside. They're not in the weeds. They're not in that space. They don't have the detriment of the emotion that's drowning you in addition to the actual thing that's bothering you. So bringing someone that you trust into the fray that you can bounce it off of, I would say, is the first step. And then whatever you have, depending on the symptom, it's like, what is the root of this? Where is this coming from? Is it truly just you have too much on your plate? You've said yes to too many things and you can just take stuff off? Like, what doesn't belong here anymore? Or is it more of something deeper that you have to unearth and figure out what that might be?
Yeah, that's fantastic too. I love that advice. I love that, who are your trusted mentors, helping, like being able to lean on people, because we really are not meant to do it alone. I truly, truly believe that. So, okay, fantastic. Okay. So here's my last question about this section is, how do you know when to stop? Like, maybe you've identified a deficit. Maybe you've done these things. You've leaned on somebody. So how do you know when to stop and like move on to something else?
I'm, this is me. I don't know if this is everybody else. I'm not a proponent of like, once you've committed to something, you see it all the way through. Like if I'm reading a book and that book sucks by chapter 2, it's literally like kindling in our fireplace by the end of the day. I do not feel a commitment to this author I don't know to finish the book because I started it. So sometimes for me, if it's not adding value, making me better, if it doesn't bring me joy, if I don't feel fulfilled or in alignment with what I'm doing, it's got to go. And that's not to say that everything you do should bring you joy. There's so many things in business and parenting that literally suck. It's like, this is terrible, but it's serving a greater purpose and it's alignment with, like when I'm sitting there and my baby is like puking into a towel because I can't get them to the bathroom fast enough, not exactly on a list of things that I want to be doing. However, I know that that's part of who I'm called to be, is this nurturing, compassionate mother who would do anything for their child. So it is an alignment, right? It doesn't necessarily bring me joy, but it's certainly right up there with exactly how I want to be. Maybe I'd like to be a little faster so we can get to the bathroom, but that's a different story. Yeah. So I don't want to play that game of like, if it doesn't feel good, don't do it, because I don't believe that to be true. You have to be able to kind of discern, and discernment is a leadership skill that you have to kind of peel back the layers of the onion on, of, is this at least checking one of those boxes? Is it bringing me joy? Is it in alignment with my purpose? Is it moving me closer to my mission? Does it fulfill me? Something in those realms, because sometimes the answer is this can go away. Like I know plenty of, I was talking to one of my clients the other day and she's like, well, my podcast is at this, this juncture and we're talking about the growth of the show. And we get to the end of it and all the things she was saying sounded super stressful around the podcast. And I was like, well, is it directly driving revenue at this point? She's like, well, no, it's bringing in leads, but it's not, I don't think it would directly affect our bottom line too much. She hated podcasting. And I'm like, what? Stop. Like you've just been doing it for 4 years every single week. So you just feel like you have to do it, but it takes a lot of time. And you run a show, it takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of prep work, a lot intention. And it was all that energy, intention, time could have been put towards something that was going to be rocket fuel towards what she's really called to do or what she wants to do. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I feel like, you have to be able to discern, does this even need to be in my world anymore? Can I just offload this completely? Is there someone else that can do it? Or do I even need to pay someone else to do it? Can this just go away? So I think it's very dependent on the thing, but those are kind of the benchmarks that I look at of like, is this just paying my dues as leader? So like, I should be doing this and this is the right thing to do and it's in alignment with who I am? Or is this just something someone else told me I should be doing or that I've just been doing for so long that I feel like I have to keep doing it? And being able to discern that is kind of a critical piece.
Okay, I love that answer. And I feel like you gave me this when we were talking about team, and there were some questions that you asked your team kind of in the review. And one of the questions, I think if I'm going to help me if I'm saying it wrong, but it was like, what's something that you're doing that you often wonder, why am I doing this? And does this move the needle? Did I say it right?
Yep, that's it.
And so I did reviews this last year with each of my team members, and I asked that question, and it was so interesting, the answers that came out, because there were things that they were doing, a couple of them, that drove them nuts, and that I didn't even look at those things anymore. And so I was like, okay, we're going to stop doing this. Like, it's okay to just stop doing it. And if I miss it in 6 months, we can come back and revisit it. But I'm not going to ask you to do something that I haven't even looked at in 6 months. So
and that you're paying them to do.
Yes, crazy. Yeah. So I love that that's your answer of knowing when to stop and this idea of discernment. And there's a podcaster, he used to always say that when he would get asked to do things, he would ask himself these 2 questions. And the first question was, does it make me happy? And the second question was, does it make me money? And if he couldn't answer yes to one of the questions, his immediate answer was no. But I feel like, and I've really embraced that, but I feel like you gave me a new way to think about this. It's like, does this bring me joy? And is this in alignment with who I want to be and who I am? And if I can't say yes to at least one of those questions, then the answer is always going to be no.
Yeah. It's got to be the way. And I think, at least for me, part of that definition of luminary leadership is there's an element of selflessness and sacrifice that I feel like today's culture really doesn't embrace. So that's why one of the defining differences for me is sometimes you really are doing something that doesn't bring you joy in the immediate moment because it's maybe not a thing you love to do. And maybe it isn't making you money, but it is part of the core value of who you are or how you want to live or the legacy you want to leave. You know, like I have just an incredible place in my heart for the elderly. I feel like they're such an underserved population. And there are a lot of things that we do as a family to support people locally that are just not being treated the way that they should be. And sometimes the actual thing I'm doing, it's like in the middle of a day where like I have so much to do for work and then I have the kids and I don't want to do this thing, whether it's delivering meals or something like that. But it is very much who I want to be. And it's honoring that. And it's and there can be joy in sacrifice that comes after when you know that you've made that sacrifice for somebody else, for the good of someone else. So that's something that I really teach. And I teach my children that I was taught that sacrifice can be a really good thing. Selflessness can be a beautiful thing. And it's really missing in many ways from today's feel-good culture of like, do what feels good, whatever you want. And I just don't agree with it. And I want to bring, to me, it's a gift to bring to leaders, to remind them, sometimes you're going to do crap you don't want to do. Don't do it for the sake of nothing, like the stuff you've talked to your team about. And they're like, yeah we're running these reports. You don't even look at them anymore. Yep. But if it's for the sake of another person, for the good of another person, and it's in alignment with really who you feel called to be, and you've discerned that, and you've listened to your intuition, and you know your values, and you've got your true north, then you've got your answer there too. And it might be a little bit of a sacrifice, but it'll be worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for commenting on that too. I feel like you and I've had a conversation at some point that led to this too. I know you've shared some of the stuff that you guys do. And I think about these things, like you've made such an impression and impact on me. I'm so thrilled to call you my friend. Okay. So as we wrap up today, thank you so much, one, for taking this time and sharing about luminary leadership. But I do want to ask you some fun questions, some like little something extra for people to get to know you a little bit. So off the cuff, who's somebody who inspires you right now?
Who inspires me right now? That's a good question. Give me a sec. Actually, I'm just from a personal perspective, my husband has totally been just inspiring me, and he's coming in full time into the company, and his hunger and willingness to, he's brilliant and he's had an incredibly successful career. So to come into something new kind of at that bottom of the totem pole where you kind of have to do some of that learning and being the person who doesn't really know anything, but he's had such humility in the process that it's a beautiful thing to watch, and it's reinvigorating my inspiration around why we do what we do. So it's just been an inspiration, and it has really opened my eyes up to new levels of possibility, feeling like I have this partner pulling this equal yoke with me, and I'm not in it alone.
It was so awesome to meet Michael at the retreat, and I got to have a really interesting, fun, like one-on-one conversation with him. He is an amazing person. You guys are such a good fit too for each other. And everything that he did to show up at the retreat and really be engaged. And it was fun to have him there and get to know him a little bit after knowing you for a couple of years. So, okay. What is one thing people would be surprised to learn about you?
I was going to say that I'm introverted, but that wouldn't really be a surprise. Most people who know me pretty well know that I'm very introverted. But the thing, I trained for the junior Olympic swim team when I was a kid.
What?
So there.
Wow. I did not know that. Did you have
Most
a
people don't.
particular, like with swimming, is there a particular like thing that you were, what was your?
I was free stroke and butterfly were my jam.
Do you still swim a lot?
I do. Well, growing up in New Hampshire, we had a pool. So
Okay.
whenever we go back to my parents, I swim when I'm there. But out here, we don't have a pool. So I found a club. I work out from home, but then I found a club where I could swim. But truthfully, in the winter, I don't, because it's so freaking cold in Wisconsin that you come out with your hair wet and it turns into like a literal icicle, and I can't do it. I'm a hermit in the winter. You will not get me out of my house once we get into the negatives. It's just disgusting and it's not happening.
And you guys live on a farm, right?
We do.
And you actually have it's like a VIP level service where people can come and spend time on the farm and strategize with you and Michael. And I know a few people who have done it, and everybody just raves about, well, one, what they come out of from a business standpoint, but also just the experience of being on the farm with you guys in Wisconsin.
It is one of, if not my favorite thing that we do, because it's so special and intimate, bringing people into our home and seeing how, like down home roots we are. Like, we don't put on a show for people. They get to see our family and meet our kids and break bread with us and have meals with us and just experience life with us as we get to do what we do best, which is the business strategy side of it. But I grew up in a family that there was always a seat at the table for people to come in and eat with us. And there was something really special that came around people coming into your home and having meals with you. And when we came up with this idea, it just felt like it was capturing that element of my upbringing that I cherish so much and that I learned so much from. So yeah, I turn into a little bit of a mad scientist when people come out with my like 15 whiteboards creating their future. But I also love the piece of it that is so connective in the process too.
Well, I know one of our members of the incubator was just there, and he just did his day with you, and he's just been raving about it in the group. And you guys have been posting some pictures. I think a lot of us are like, oh, when's my day? When's my time to go to the farm? So I love it. All right. So what's something exciting that's going on in your business right now?
I am really excited about this branch of our company called Raising Luminaries that we're kicking off. So our company, everything that we do is really with the family in mind, whatever that person's family might look like. It's elevating the leader and the entrepreneurs in their business so that they can have the capacity to show up in their home and to really lead in their home and raise leaders. And so we actually have a program and an event, two separate things that are launching. I can't give all the details because we haven't even officially announced it, but it is something that if people are, entrepreneurial parents, to stay tuned for. We have kind of just the home for entrepreneurial parents to really have the tools and the resources to raise them up in leadership, to see the tremendous business growth that they're seeking, but also to have the resources too in their home to raise up leaders of their own. So we're going to have an event that will include both the parents and the kids together. It's kind of the first of its kind. And I am dying to officially put it out in front of people because it is, I really think it's kind of one of those things that I know everybody says they want to be a disruptor, but I really think it will disrupt things. I think it will change the dynamic of family. And I've just seen so much pain that can come from the beauty of entrepreneurship that just ends up leading to this toxicity in the home. And it gets swept under the rug. It's a conversation people don't want to have because it's a really painful one. Mm-hmm. But it's a reality, and it's affecting the next generation. I mean, it's deeply affecting kids, especially with devices and things like that. So anyway, we're really eager to get this Raising Luminaries in front of the right people and to kick off this movement strong. I think it's going to be something that's pretty revolutionary for families.
I can't wait for you to kick this off. And I know that there's already people that are like, I'm on the wait list.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to participate. I can't wait. So I know people are really excited about it. I know that it's going to be awesome. Okay. So last question is, how can a person listening right now connect with you? Because please connect with Liz. Like, you will not regret having her in your life in any form or fashion. So what's the best way to connect with you?
Thanks, Nikki. Okay, so the best way is that True North I was talking about. I'd love to gift it to your audience. It's an incredibly powerful tool, and it will change the dynamic of your personal life and in your home, but also within the walls of your business, how you lead, how you grow your business and all of that. So I can share that with you all. It's over at luminaryleadershipco.com/true north. So luminaryleadershipco.com/true north. And you can download that for free. And it's this workbook that you can either do on your own or with your team or with your family. I mean, we included even our little kids in the process, or your spouse or whomever, but it's going to give you that clarity and that guiding light to get you to where you want to go next. And then over at the Luminary Leadership Podcast, come subscribe, listen. We have great resources for the leaders, the entrepreneurs who are growing in business, but also we have our episodes called Raising Luminaries, where we share tips on raising leaders and guidance and conversations around some things that haven't been talked about enough that are being talked about over on our show. So that's the Luminary Leadership Podcast. I am on Instagram at Liz Hartke, and I will readily admit I'm trying to be more consistent. I don't like having to be on my phone. I want to live by what I preach, but I don't have the willpower that when I have this device with all these awesome, fun things on it. So I'm not super consistent. So if you send me a message, I will respond, but it won't be immediate. But come follow me on. It's at Liz Hartke.
Yeah. Go follow her. She posts great things. Listen to her podcast for sure. And go get the True North playbook, really. It's amazing. So I have it. I've downloaded it. It's amazing. Go. It's quite a gift that she's giving. It's not just a one-page document. It's really something you can dig your teeth into and get something out of. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for all your insight and everything you shared. And mostly just thank you for being who you are and how you show up in the world, because you definitely show up leading with love.
Thank you, Nikki. Literally, without exaggeration, people like you, specifically you, remind me why I am so, so blessed to get to do what I do, and that I'm blessed to be able to be in that sweet spot to serve and work alongside people just like you. So thank you. And thank you for having me on. This conversation was awesome. I was taking notes throughout it because this was so cool to see how we do what we do through a different lens. A lot of these questions evoked some serious thought, and I was like, man, that's a tough one, but it really is fun to see what you come up with and how you actually process through things.
Well, it was a great conversation. I know listeners are going to get so much out of it. And for you, the listener, thank you so much for being here and being a part of this conversation with me and Liz. If we haven't connected yet, let's do that. I tend to hang out on Instagram. You can find me under Sales Maven and or on LinkedIn. And please rate and review the show. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.